Bam! MC is in the house. What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I'm here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Taking a topic deep dive and having a good time while doing it. And I'm usually joined by a good group, solid group of men and women. We got some ladies in there that help me make these conversations more interesting, right? Adding a little depth to the talks that we have. If you guys are watching, do me a favor, give me a shout here. Say what's up. I always like seeing people participating. And I'm still squaring away. Every once in a while, I have these talks prepared, and I have an outline, so I make sure I cover the things I want to. And if I get a little lead time, I start populating the titles on the software that I'm using, so I could just bring it up, and it's always a mess. But when I get it done properly, I think the video winds up being easier to follow. So I'm just prompting that. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see who's commenting. Jesse, what's up, brother, man? Good to see you. 1-2, good to see you. Jamie, my man up in Canada, glad all is well. Corey, what's going on, brother, man? Good to see you as usual. And today's topic, Johnny Groove, what's up, brother, man? I see you too. Good to see you. Today's topic is, I created a structure for it. I don't think I necessarily needed one, but there was some power that I wanted to share with you guys. I didn't want to make this just a hey, let me tell you what's going on with me, like in a sort of gossipy sense. Like my life's so fucking interesting that everybody should be involved in it. But I do think what I'm doing has a little bit of strategy and mindset put into it. And I think there's benefit for you guys to pay attention to that, which is, what I'm going to share. Before I get into that, those of you that are watching on YouTube and a couple of Facebook pages right now, if you are not getting my emails every day, go to masterchimletter.com and do that. And no matter where you're watching, there should be a link in the description. Make sure you're getting those emails every day. But having a pretty good response to my emails this last, I'd say, month or so. And I think the email service provider that I use has finally, and this is pure speculation, but has finally passed some sort of algorithmic hurdle where it's actually getting into people's inboxes now for the first time. I could just as easily say, oh, my emails have gotten so much better, but I just know that's not the case. They've been pretty consistent the last, 8-9 years that I've been writing them. But if you're not getting them, they're free. Go to masterchimletter.com and get them there. All right. So what's going on? Let's prep this. So the idea of me returning to competition, I was, the last time I competed, I wrote it in the email that I sent this morning, was October 28th, 2006. October 28th, 2006. And it was the Abu Dhabi trials. They were held in Jersey. I guess it was the East Coast trials. I don't know if there was an East Coast and West Coast. No, I think it was just one trials back then because I competed against some guys from the West Coast. And I made it to the semifinals. I lost in the semifinals, and that was the last competition I ever did. And this was no-gi submission grappling. For those of you guys that follow jiu-jitsu, the last time I competed with the gi was, I don't know, I was a purple belt. I don't even know what year it is or was. Was it 2005, maybe 2004? I don't even know, but a lot longer, a lot earlier than that. So purple belt was the last time I competed with the gi. And I'm not somebody who believes that, one has to constantly compete in order to get better, because competition is a sort of, it's a format that exists aside from its effect on the individual. So what do I mean by that? If you compete, I think everybody should compete at some point in their development, because where they are, in their development, competition could be a source of pressure, right? It could be the thing that pushes them towards a different level or of understanding of what it is that they actually know, what they don't know, what they thought they knew, but it turns out when it matters, they don't know. And I think it's a great feedback loop for people. Past that point, however, it becomes different. It becomes just a pastime, a hobby. It's something that I've never really, I've competed in almost everything I've ever done, but I've never consistently looked to be, a full-time competitor in anything that I've done, because I sort of got out of competition when I wanted to, and then I kept it moving. And this is a very, preference-based, share that I'm giving you. I'm not saying that this is the way to do it, but this is my relationship with competition. I didn't necessarily enjoy competition. I hated, preparing for MMA. I hated, I loved fighting. I just didn't like committing to a fight, training for a fight, showing up. Like, it just became something different. So I think that everybody should compete because it represents some pressure. I remember, though, one time I was in a pro grappling tournament, right? Or a pro division of a grappling tournament. And one of the guys who was in the tournament was a guy named Mark Lehman. And Mark Lehman at this tournament was talking to me and my instructor. My instructor, Rob Kahn, knew Mark from years prior. And Mark Lehman was in the competition. I think he was in a different weight class as me, or maybe on the other side of the bracket. But he was from California, I think, the West Coast. And he was trying to sell a laptop, right? He was trying on this trip, and we were, I think, in Pennsylvania. And he was trying to sell this laptop so he could, I guess, get money for his trip, whatever. And I remember that this was like, it was one of my first, if not my first, pro tournament. And, I'm like in the zone, I'm focused and everything. And Mark Lehman didn't give two fucks about the pressure of the tournament. He had been a high-level competitor for some time. Competition meant nothing. And I remember he's talking to Rob, my instructor, and me. And he's like, yeah, this laptop, it's got this, that, the other thing. And he's talking to us about this thing. And suddenly they announce his name to compete, to get on the mat. So he goes, oh, hold on, I'll be right back. And he goes and he has a match, submits the guy in like, I don't know, less than a minute, whatever. And then comes back and wants to talk about the laptop. Now, Mark Lehman, super high-level, competitor, very, very impressive, grappler. Competition wasn't something that was necessarily pressurizing to him in and of itself. If he was going to do competition, it would be because he enjoyed it or because he was trying to achieve something that beating other people would give him. It wasn't so much a challenge internally. It was more of an external, process, more of a status game, right, than anything else. So there are some people who, when they compete, I don't know if they have that pressure. If they don't have that pressure, there should be something else. So that's something else in competing. Like, I don't care what somebody does. Like, that's a world that I don't really deal with a lot. For me, it's the pressure. So I had competed because it was pressure. When it stopped being pressurized, I stopped. Like that last competition I didn't really train for it properly. I wasn't having fun. I almost committed to doing it because I was invited to do it. And it's like, well, I guess I should do it because I was invited. But it's like, I have other shit I wanted to focus on. I was trying to build my business at that point. And when I won tournaments or I did well in competition, it didn't do anything for the success of my business. So it's like, well, why am I doing this? I don't enjoy doing it. Like, it's a whole big thing. So people compete for different reasons. It's been almost 20 years since I've competed. And a couple of weeks ago, some of you guys saw the post that I put on social media. I was actually signing my one of my sons up for his first competition. He's done in-house tournaments before in the Jungle Gym, my academy, but this is his first competition he's going to. And it just seemed the right thing to do in the moment. I'm signing up, I'm looking at competition, and I said, you know what? Why not just fuck it, just do one? Now I'm out of shape. I'm way heavier than I would be if I'm competing. I'm like in the high 240s right now. So I found a tournament that was, I think it's November, the tournament is. And I said, okay, this is enough time to train, drop weight, get my timing back, whatever, and get back into it. And there is a whole thought process about why I think my subconscious drove me to tell me that was the thing to do in the moment. And that process and what my subconscious was tracking is what I wanted to convey to you guys today, right? So let's get into it. You guys know me and my lists. I think I have 5 things, 6 things. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go over the points. Before I do that, let me say what's up to Aaron. Good to see you, darling. John Wiley, what's up, brother, man? Little Goose in the house. Just talking to your dad before. What's going on? Good to see you. Jan Saxa, good to see you. And Judge Cohen, what's up, brother, man? Good to see you. So let's get into it. Let me get organized here. So where are the reasons? Okay, reason number 1. This is not in any order. I didn't put a number on them because I didn't want to make them in any order. But the first reason, pressure to power. I'm the pressure to power guy. Like, how the fuck do I not have pressure in my life every day in a way that I could point to it and say, yeah, this is what I'm doing right now? How could I not do that? I'm the pressure to power guy. So and not so much I'm the guy, so I have to do it. That's kind of the point that I just made. But the reason I'm making that point is I believe in that. So if I don't have any pressure, where is an increase of power going to come from? My priority is always self-power, right? Internal power before external power. But regardless of the type of power, I believe in creating pressure. I'm not competing to win a medal. I want to be as effective a competitor as I can. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm going to go out there and try and smash everybody I'm competing against. But the drive is always an internal one. The pressure is always an internal one. I'm competing to inject that pressure into my life. I have plenty of areas where, there is pressure present. But I found myself in a spot where I had a little bit probably more comfort than I like. And so I needed to find something new. And that's exactly what that represented. The thing about pressure, it creates clarity, in your purpose and what your rituals are. It forces sort of like a refinement of understanding how you should qualify and manage your time and your resources. As soon as I found out myself, as soon as I registered for that tournament, I immediately was like, all right, this is what I got to do in the morning. All of a sudden, this structure started appearing because I had a context that hadn't existed prior to that, right? So I think, with challenges like this, it demands more of an individual. And if we're trying to do things that are demanding more of us, then we got to ask ourselves, well, if we're doing something that we've gotten used to, if we're doing something where the pressure has sort of subsided, or we just got better at doing the thing that we were doing, it's probably something else that's going to represent, the commitment to that challenge, right? It's probably going to be the next thing. You'll find that, for me at least, and I am an advocate for this idea that the more you pressure yourself, the more you realize it's going to pour over into other areas of your life. It's initially, I would say, the context of the task at hand. Like for me, the example of competing, it's like, oh, I got a bunch of weight to drop. I have injuries I have to square away. I have to start moving my body in the way that I needed to move as a competitor, which is different than when I'm not doing jiu-jitsu or when I'm just training with my students. Like I have to start moving, just as a competitor. And I haven't moved as a competitor on the mat in some time. Every once in a while, you have a rough, round here and there. But for the better part of 20 years, as I've been training, it's like, don't get injured, get better, but don't get injured. And a lot of my movement has just been being able to help my students get better at what they're doing. Right. So competing, it's a different thing. The different challenge pressures everything. So I got a better sleep routine. I got a better diet already. I got better, like these are all things that I was already addressing, but now at a higher level. Right. Lori, good to see you. Little shout out there. So let's move on to the next thing. So the other point here is ritual must be real. Ritual must be real. If you guys have read Tribalnomics, one of the tenets is the identity of a tribe has an RPS formula: ritual, procreation, survival. And ritual is just the sort of the category of things procreation and survival being subsets of the rituals. We have procreation rituals, we have survival rituals. There's some other categories that I'm going to articulate in a future book. But the thing is, they must be real, and they must model the type of outcome and identity you claim to have. You try to become, right? And for me, in my tribalnomic system, ritual isn't just a tradition, it's a commitment to transformation. It's like you don't do things solely because, well, this is what we've always done. Because the limitation of that is you get to the point where people have completely become disconnected to the reason why you've done it in the first place, the context that the ritual represents. They've lost that. So we have to be in touch with the purpose, the value of the rituals, because it should be transformative, which is why I say ritual must be real. For me, competing isn't about the nostalgia of, oh yeah, back then when I used to compete, or oh man, I want to win tournaments now, see if I could do it. That doesn't have value to people. I'm not disqualifying the value of that to whoever sees it as being valuable. But for me, it's still proving that my RPS formula still works. And I don't mean as a teaching, methodology or format or framework. I mean my literal RPS formula, the things that I do to pressurize myself, as I mentioned earlier, as it still works. Like I wear a lot of hats in my life. I'm, never mind, aside from just being a man, I'm a coach, I'm a husband, a father, I'm somebody that people look to give them guidance or feedback to improve their lives. It's kind of hypocritical if I'm telling other people how to live and I'm not willing to sort of choose the hard path myself. I can't be somebody that talks about, the way it should be and just completely absolving or disconnecting myself from the scrutiny of those same standards. Now, it's going to be relative to a certain point. Some guys, their pressure might be opening that new business or asking this girlfriend to marry them, or what their pressure is. It's relevant to the individual. But to me, the thing is, it's the hard path. It's the hard path. I think the hard path is pressure laden. And that's the only way we develop power, is to sort of engage that hard path. I'm trying to model what I believe in, which is living deliberately. There are a lot of people who, because of the comforts of their lives, they develop a risk aversion, right? They develop this unwillingness to take chances, or there's a sort of minimum level of certainty that they require, or perceived certainty that they require to move forward. I don't believe in that. I believe in taking risk on purpose. And there's a point where if we don't challenge the comforts of our lives, the comforts will kill the power that we've built up until that point. So, you can only talk about this, but so much. At some point, you got to do something. And I think every strong man and I don't, I think, as an aside, I'm not trying to romanticize this or make this seem like some epic fucking challenge I'm doing. I'm going to do a jiu-jitsu competition. Like, I'm not fucking trying to take over a fucking country or anything, right? So please don't think that I'm trying to position myself as this, heroic fucking figure. Not by any means. But I think, on the contrary, the value is not everybody needs to do that shit to continue to pressure themselves. There's always going to be a time to slay a dragon, I guess, if you're going to be a hero. But I think everybody should have the self-power, the integrity of who they are, to at times suffer for their standards. And if you're somebody who does not believe in suffering for your standards, then I think, maybe standards isn't the right way to describe the things that you claim to represent, right? So it's a ritual, and like most things in my life, I choose to lead from the front. I choose to be the guy that goes first. Some of you guys years ago saw the time where I had my entire class, my inner circle guys, my high level fighters and students, all get pepper sprayed, right? And one of my students at the time was a teacher at a police academy who facilitated this exercise in the police academies. So I asked him to, basically get your equipment, get your shit, and come to to my school. And it was my warrior elite class, right, which was like the small class that I hold for the top level guys on Sundays. And they all walked in that day, and it's like, oh, what are we doing today, MC? And I'm like, oh yeah, everybody, we're all going to the backyard and getting pepper sprayed. And they were like, okay, and I told everybody, like, listen, nobody has to do it. Like, knowing obviously that peer pressure is through the fucking roof. But I had never been pepper sprayed at that point. But I was first in line. Of course, I'm having it done to me first. And it's the type of leadership model that I believe in. And it doesn't mean that I'm supposed to do it more than everybody, more frequently, take more pepper spray, or be tougher than it. It's like, no, but I'm going to go first. And that's something that I want to continue. It's something that I pride myself in being as a leader type, right? So ritual must be real. Okay, the next. Let me click the next one. Leadership demands proof. I was just talking about leadership. I have a lot of students. I have students in the academy. I have students that are in my mastermind group, students that I coach. Students don't always follow what you say. They're more inclined to follow what you do. I don't think this is incredibly insightful, me saying this, but there's a difference. I think the saying is, don't show off, show up. And every once in a while, you got to do some things to remind the people that are following you that, yeah, I'm still in it too. I never want to present myself as somebody who has completely eradicated any uncertainty, inconsistency, or, suboptimal efforts, in my life. Like, no, I fuck things up all the time. There are plenty of things that I'm still battling with, that I'm still working every day to become more and more powerful in my relationship with. So it's not something that I ever think is going to end, nor should it. I would say that at some point, the problems don't end. It's just people start shrinking, the scope and scale of their lives to where all of the variables that they're coming into contact with, they've controlled. And I think at that point, when you don't want to grow as an individual, you better develop an impressive way of describing yourself as being powerful, because you're not powerful, right? You're just in control of the ecosystem that you've created. But power, I think, comes from exploring new areas, and broadening one's horizons and not losing your identity in the process, right? That's what self-power is all about. It's not about controlling the environment. It's about not losing one bit of who you are, despite the stress that the environment is putting on you, right? So I think I want the leadership demands proof. It's like, I want my students to know that this isn't just lip service. This isn't something that I just think would be popular on the internet. This is something that I believe in. Years ago, when I committed to doing my first MMA fight, I've told the story before, I already had 50, 60 students. My academy was growing. I had a good core group of guys that really supported the school. Then I had the opportunity to fight. Now, years prior, I joined a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school thinking that everybody fought, right? I, like a lot of people, the Hoist Gracie, UFC, like Vale Tudo, all these different things. I thought that that's what this was. I didn't even know there was like jiu-jitsu competitions, gi or no gi. I didn't find that out until after the fact. But when I first got in, I thought that you were supposed to fight. That was everything. But then, you start competing, you win a couple of competitions, and you open up a school, you start getting guys following you. Then the opportunity for me to fight finally appears. And I was nervous. It was like, holy shit. What if, I've been, modeling myself as the superior fighter to my students that they should look to listen to, that could help them become better. What if I position myself this way in this group, but then I go out and I get knocked the fuck out, or I'm a black belt and I go and I don't think I was a black belt when I competed, but regardless, let's say I go out and, you know, somebody who's a blue belt or a purple belt knocks me the fuck out or submits me, you know, like even worse, it would be perceived as. And I remember having this huge pushback internally, like, no, fuck that. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Like, what if you lose and everybody leaves you? Then you can't pay your rent. And then, you know, your fucking business suffers. And I felt so weak, right? So gay, right? Not in a homosexual way. You guys know what the fuck I'm talking about. I just needed to kiss guys. No, I'm like, oh fuck, I put that soundbite out there now. But the idea of it is, I was so disgusted with my internal dialogue. It's like immediately I fucking called. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's find me some motherfucker. Like, I don't give a fuck. Let's go. Because I had to at that point. And it's like, you know, even if what the consequence represented in me losing what it was paled in comparison to the consequence of having to live with myself if I thought I was too scared to try, right? And I wasn't some bitch either. Like I wasn't, it's not even like on paper I wasn't going to do well, you know, or so I thought. Like I was pretty competitive. I was capable, you know. So it was even, my point is even there was even less of a reason to doubt myself, which made it even worse that I had that internal dialogue. So I immediately committed. And if you look at my two fights, it doesn't look like somebody who was very nervous, but I swear to you that it was not something I wanted to do, but my standards would not allow me to avoid it, right? So leadership demands proof. Monk, what's up, brother man? Good to see you. So let's move on to the next thing. Power games, not status games. Power games, not status games. So the first time, I don't know if it's his, but the first time I heard of the concept of status games, not that the term itself, you know, isn't difficult, it's difficult to figure out, but the first time I heard it was from Naval Ravikant. And I listened to a lot of Naval's stuff. I like his stuff. And he talks about this distinction between status games and wealth creation, and how status games is as old as people are, but wealth creation is something different. We're in a position now in time where people can create surplus. There needn't be a focus on status because there is so much wealth to be created. You know, it's this, you know, avoiding the scarcity mindset. It's like, in order for me to be successful, it doesn't mean that somebody else needs to fail, right? Status games, it's like when everybody is operating with the same amount of resources. Status games is who's in charge, who's perceived as the best. And it's like, if resources are accounted for, whether they're plentiful or, you know, deficient, but you don't have a say in that, the next thing is, well, where do I get my significance? Where do I get my value? And that's, you know, it just makes sense why status games would be what people evolve to play. Well, we're past the need for that, I would argue. And where that's concerned here, for me competing, it's like this, I don't care about being seen as better. I don't care if people, like, I can go out there and smash everybody and everybody's like, holy shit, that guy's fucking amazing. I can go out there and get smashed and everybody go, oh man, I thought he'd do better. You know, like it could be, but I don't care how I'm seen. This is about becoming better. This is about putting myself through some sort of transition where there is risk, where there is uncertainty, where I have to try my best for an outcome that I have a limited amount of control over. I want to maximize the amount of control that I do have, but I understand the totality of factors that are involved in the outcome aren't completely under my control to begin with. But again, this is about becoming a better man, becoming a better person. I noticed that over the years, whenever I'd have somebody go through a training camp, like a fight camp, it's like that pressure, that focused pressure, and having the context of an upcoming fight, especially when there's an opponent that has a name and a face, it makes everything so real. it just adds value to the training. So whenever somebody in the school had a fight coming up, everybody that trained with him leveled up because of the level of focus. So for me, I know just training and doing this, like I'll be dropping a ton of weight, I'll be getting in better shape. I've got injuries that I have to manage like anybody else, but a lot of it is, like I'm going to have these injuries regardless, whether I compete or not. So it's not something that I'm incredibly focused on. Win, lose, or draw. I think at the end of it, I'll be more capable. I'll be more disciplined. I'll be more dialed in. There's an argument that I'll be more dangerous, right? Which is always a good quality for a man to cultivate. And so just the challenge itself is the thing that I'm looking to benefit from, not the status implications that hinge on the outcome. Hope that makes sense. Corey writes, the effort you put into one area of your life always carries over into the others. People who are lazy on the job are also never all-star fathers and partners. The same goes for sports and competition. It may not be a life or death situation, but it's important as you want it to be. I agree completely. And I would say that, the old saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. I've said before in my coaching, our name should be an adjective. It should be a verb. If I say that I'm going to do this at a Justin Garcia level, well, it's up to me to determine what that means. If I said, stop emceeing that, is that a compliment? Is that, an insult? It's up to me to add value to that identity. And standards is a good way to start. So I couldn't agree more, Corey, for that. All right. So we got one more here. And let me get this one up. Voluntary struggle is the highest form of self-respect. Voluntary struggle is the highest form of self-respect. I signed up for this competition. I don't need to compete. And that's kind of the point. Everybody faces struggle, in their days that circumstances dictate. And we have to train ourselves to become strong enough to navigate those, to come out on the right side of these adversities that we face naturally. However, when we choose struggles, there is a compliment, an honoring that we pay to ourselves that taking on that challenge represents. I, as an individual, I choose to live a life that is full of challenge. I cannot design a life that is so comfortable that I find security in that comfort. I don't have goals as much as I have milestones. It's always the next thing that I'm trying to develop. I'd rather lose in a truthful, valuable struggle than win in a small, weak, comfortable life. And so when to you guys watching, there are going to be things that you have to face, and there's no choice. The rent needs to get paid. The injury needs to heal. The conversation needs to be had. On and on and on. But there's something to be said for, despite the enormity of those challenges, taking on yet more that represent a voluntary struggle, and what that means to you from you, in the belief in your ability to benefit from that additional challenge. So voluntary struggle is the highest form of self-respect. So that's what I got. Let me go down the reasons again, as I've just labeled, and there's probably more, but starts off with, why did I sign up? Pressure to power. I believe in that as a philosophy. I always want to become more powerful, as all of you should. Whether it's an internal power, an external power, a combination of the two, I'll leave that up to you. But without the pressure, there's not going to be any of it. So I needed more pressure. And at this point, it seems like the universe spoke to me and said, yeah, this is what you should be doing. So I answered the call. Now, mind you, I still got to get on the fucking mat. So not lost on me is this, like, I don't want credit for something I didn't fucking do yet. Right. So it's November, I want to say 15th in Connecticut. I am in the I think it's the Masters division, 40-year-old and up. I'm doing gi and no gi. I registered for, so I'll be in the black belt division and the advanced or expert division of no gi. And it's in what's the Grappling Industries is the name of it. So if any of you guys are in that division and want to come and fight me, hey, there's going to be a chance, by the way, right? The only time you'll fight me where, you're guaranteed not to die. Is that over the top to say on a video? But no, it's all in good fun. So pressure to power is the first reason. Next one, a ritual must be real. What I'm filling my life with needs to align with who I claim to be, what I claim to be directed toward, who I am as represented by what I do, right? Nietzsche said, become who you are. I know who I am, and I am constantly looking to design the life that allows me to be it. And so these rituals must coincide with that. Leadership demands proof, the next one. You got to walk the walk. That's what it is. There's a certain point where what you say to do has a limitation. You don't have to do the specific thing. If you're training a professional boxer and you are only an amateur level boxer, like, it's not that you have to do it at the level that they're doing it or even the application that they're doing it. It's that you have to have a life that mirrors the challenge that you are trying to impose on the people that you are leading, right? So leadership demands proof. Power games, not status games. I am trying to become better. I am not trying to be seen as better. I don't want to be popular. I want to be powerful. In today's email, the quote, becoming stronger is almost always better than relying on a plan. I think people, they have the bandwidth to do a lot of planning. I help businesses plan out their year. But one of the things that I put in that planning is just how unreliable this plan is actually going to be, but how it allows us to set the trajectory of our efforts. I think that when people become obsessed with control, they start to obsess with planning. And the more the planning doesn't come to be, rather than accepting the limitations of planning, people tend to just live smaller lives until their plans always come true. And I think that's where you make a mistake. And I think pursuing status games is a way for people to sort of fall down that trap. I think becoming powerful is the pinnacle of purpose for a man. All right. So I'm looking to play power games, not status games. I can go out there and kill everybody. I can go out there and get smashed. Either way does not change my motivation for doing it one bit. And finally, the one I ended up with, voluntary struggle is the highest form of self-respect. Honor yourself by giving yourself a challenge that is outside the realm of the challenges that your life provides. All right, so here we go. That's that. All right, if you guys are not getting my emails, go to masterchimletter.com and sign up. What the fuck are you doing? They're free. I send them every day. Do me a favor, help me with this whole algorithm game that we're playing here. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. It took me, up until a couple of months to realize that all the comments on the chat doesn't appear on the page itself. So if you wanted to give me some feedback on what you're doing to challenge yourself on the comments, not in the chat, it would certainly help. You guys know the game. We all fucking play with this YouTube shit. But I even feel gay fucking asking for too much participation. So I appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys next week, same time. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.